Evening, everyone. How is everyone? The regular meeting of the Wayne Westland Community School Board is brought to order today on Monday, November 12, 2018, at 7 o'clock. On behalf of the Board of Education, I would like to welcome each and every one of you. Your attendance this evening, it reflects your interest in public education and is greatly appreciated. We're going to start with item number 170.18, which is the Pledge of Allegiance. Our students from Marshall Upper Elementary are going to lead us in the pledge. Can Charlotte Cunyor, Haley Quinn, and Evan St. Ledger please come up to the front? You can grab the mic if you like so we can hear you nice and strong.
Test.
Whenever you're ready.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Ms. Hines is going to read your bio so that everyone knows a little bit about you. Ms. Hines?
Hi, my name is Charlotte Collier from
You can
Miss
face this way.
Ring's class. I was born on July 20th, 2007 in Dearborn, Michigan. I'm in the 6th grade and this is my first and last year at Muse, but I am liking my times at Muse. My mom and dad have been together for a very long time. My older sister, Chantel, is 20 years older than me, and she lives in Houston, Texas. That's pretty far. That's awesome. She is very creative and funny. My dad works for Kearns Brothers, Inc. My mom is an international expert manager for Little Caesars. My favorite subject is math with Miss Hunt and science lab with Miss Ring. My favorite food is shrimp and sushi. My favorite colors are royal blue and pink, and my dream college is MSU. Go green. I want my own restaurant with my god sister. No, I want to own my own restaurant with my god sister. My hobbies are dancing, drawing, acting, and I want to join a drama club. I dance for Divine Dancers of Inkster. Oh, okay, that's great. We do hip hop, jazz, ballet, African, and more. Last year, the team and I performed at Detroit Pistons game. Wow, congratulations. The reason why I like Muse is because the teachers are nice and there are a lot of activities at Muse. Now we have Miss Haley Quinn. I am 10 years old, 5th grader at Marshall Upper Elementary School in Miss Van Washenva's class. My favorite thing about Marshall is the opportunity to take an art class. I am so excited for it. I love to draw during my free time, and I also love to hang out with my family and friends. Sounds like fun. I'm an animal lover. My favorite animal is the llama. They are cute and fluffy. When I grow up, I want to be a photographer. I have always loved taking pictures of nature and different sceneries. Beautiful. And my name is Evan St. Ledger.
Look at that face.
From the Van Washenva's class. I was born on December 2nd, 2007, and I'm in the 5th grade. I have 4 pets, a dog named Boo Boo, a fish named, is it Yondu? And a turtle named Beach, and a hermit crab named Hermit. Got a lot of cool animals. Some stuff I like to do is sports. I bowl in the league, and I enjoy playing basketball, football, and soccer. Fabulous. I also enjoy playing video games like, is it Fortnite, of course? The last thing I would like to say is that Marshall is an amazing school, and I love everything about it.
Great.
Congratulations.
So stay right there. Dr. Weaver's going to come down and he's going to give you a certificate from the Board of Education, okay? And you can face the audience that way.
Hi guys, how are you? Let's go with Charlotte first. Charlotte, who do you have with you tonight? Your mother, where's she at? There she is. Okay, well you just grabbed that microphone, you're gonna be a real leader, aren't you? We want to give you this for participation in our flag ceremony, and you can hang that on the wall in your bedroom, whatever you want to do with that. Let's see, Evan St. Ledger. You gotta love that name. Who'd you bring me?
I'm bringing my dad, my mom, and my grandma and my grandpa.
Okay, all right. Well, here is Harley Quinn? Yeah? How'd you get to be Haley Quinn? Who'd you bring with you?
I brought my dad, my mom, my little sister Riley, and my grandmother.
Oh, great. Now, did you guys bring anyone else with you? You didn't? Do we have anybody here? Who do we have here? Mr. Provost, and he is your principal. Watch out for her, Harley Quinn. Here is your award of recognition. Thank you so much. You can be seated.
Thank you, everybody. If you go in here, they're going to take your picture. And to the families, you're more than welcome to leave. You don't have to stay towards the whole meeting. Of course, we would love to have you, but I understand if you have other things. So at this time, if you want to, you're more than welcome to join your kids on the outside. And thank you for coming and having them participate in the flag ceremony today. Moving on to item number 171.18, roll call and attendance. Ms. Hines?
Mr. Cox,
Present.
Mr. Buckaloo,
Present.
Dr. Weaver,
Present.
Ms. Hines present, Ms. Madison excused, Ms. Madell,
I'm here.
Ms. Walker,
Present.
6-0.
Yes. Thank you. We have enough for a quorum. Moving on to item number 172.18, recognitions and presentations. Dr. Holt.
Thank you, Madam President. At this time, I would like to invite Plant Moran up to the podium. They are going to provide for us a audit presentation. Something for the board to be aware of is that this being my first full year as superintendent, I did ask for the most thorough and complete and in-depth audit as we could possibly get from Plant Moran. And so what they are going to share with you are the results of that audit, and what you have in front of you are the documents related to that.
Well, thank you and good evening. Appreciate the opportunity to speak to you tonight. So as Dr. Holt mentioned, we're here to talk about the audit for the district's year ended June 30th, 2018. There's three documents that come out of the audit process. There's the financial report with supplemental information, which represents the district's audited financial statements. There's a separate federal awards with supplemental information, which represents our separate audit of the federal programs administered by the district. And finally, there's the report to the Board of Education, which gives some insight into the audit process itself. So we'll start with this first slide, which gets into our opinion. So it's our job as the district's independent auditors to provide an opinion on the district's financial statements. And essentially, our opinion is that the financial statements are presented fairly in all material respects in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. This is what's called an unmodified or a clean opinion on the district's financial statements, which would be the highest level of assurance that we can provide on a set of financial statements. So with that, again, it's a clean audit report for this year, and next we'll get into some of the financial highlights for the results for the year ended again June 30th, 2018.
Thank you, Jeff. My name's Jamie Essemacher, and I'm the Senior Manager on the engagement. The graphs that we're going to go through focus on the general fund at financial position at June 30th, 2018. Sorry, I kind of feel like I'm hunching down here. Okay. So taking a look at, first at the total assets and total liabilities of the general fund at June 30, 2018. Total assets of the district were $35.8 million. 46%, or about $16.5 million, represent the cash and investment balance, and then $18.9 million, or about 53%, represent the receivable balance, which is primarily driven by that July and August state aid payment, as well as some property tax receivables of the district. Moving over, taking a look at the liabilities, total liabilities were $17 million at June 30th, 2018, and consisted of your accounts payable, due to other funds, and accrued payroll. As you can see, accrued payroll is the largest liability at about $10 million, or 59% at year end. This is primarily driven by the teachers on 26 pays that are accrued for at June 30th. And moving to the next slide, this slide takes a look at the general fund and other financing sources at June 30th. As you can see, from 2017 to 2018, revenue increased approximately $7.9 million, or about 7.3%. It is consisted of local sources, which is property taxes, state payments, which is your primarily state monies that the district receives, federal funds, interdistrict sources, transfers, and debt issued. And this was related to the purchase of the buses that the district did in the current year. As you can see, most of the balances are consistent with prior year. In moving to total expenditures for the general fund, they were approximately $109 million at year end. This was an increase of about $7.6 million in the current year. When we further break this out by instruction support, athletics, community service, debt service, and the capital outlay. As you can see, the most significant expense categories are instruction and support. However, you will also notice that in the current year, there was an increase of capital outlay at about about $2.6 million. This again is really due to the bus purchases that the district made over the past year, as well as a few vehicle replacement items. So the next slide takes a look at the district's expenditures again, but it really just breaks it out in a different way. This slide is breaking it out by the salaries, the fringe benefits, as well as the supplies and other. The slide documents that a significant portion of the district's expenses, about 86% in 2018 and about 87% in 2017, are comprised of the salaries and benefits expense. This would be consistent with what we see at other districts, typically which are most are around greater than 85%. So the next slide takes a look at the fund balance over the past 5 years. As you can see, the fund balance at June 30th, 2018 ended at about $18.8 million. The next slide takes a look at the general fund balance as a percentage of the general fund's total expenditures for fiscal year ended, for the fiscal years ended 2014 through 2018, and compares it to the statewide average. So on the very bottom bar, you can see that it is showing the statewide average. This information is as of June 30th, 2017, as districts are currently still accumulating that data. The state is for June 30th, 2018. The blue bar represents Wayne Westland, and the red bar is the statewide average excluding the Detroit Public Schools. When we break this apart, you can see that the district is at about 17.3%, with the state average at 12.8%. The next slide takes a look at the historical per pupil foundation allowance. For June 30th, 2018, there was an increase of about $120 per pupil to take the total to $7,631 per pupil. For the year ended June 30th, 2019, so next year, the per pupil projection is at $7,871, so a projected increase of about $240. This increase is higher than the prior year, but we're still not back to those levels that existed during 2011 and in 2012, so likely still not covering that cost of inflation that exists. And the last slide here takes a look at the student enrollment per pupil count based on budget. As you can see, for the current year, the projection was at around 10,963 students. And so with that, I know I went kind of fast, but I just will happy to take any questions or.
I was going to make a
go ahead.
couple, just real quick comments. So we covered a lot of financial information. There's two things I wanted to quickly highlight this. We talked a little about the fund balance. So the fund balance is essentially, sometimes it's called the rainy day fund. It's essentially the accumulated earnings of the district. So fund balance helps school districts, it provides stability in an uncertain financial environment. So we saw the slide where our funding level today is still less than where it was almost 10 years ago. It helps cover unexpected expenses. It helps offset, as a temporary hedge if there's unplanned enrollment losses. So it provides some financial flexibility for the district. And we saw how, we had several years not that long ago where we were well under the state average fund balance levels. And now we got back to or more in line with state average fund balance levels. So that's certainly great from a financial perspective. I think it's always important to recognize, how you got there. You got there, it wasn't That's difficult decisions made by the board, and what we talked about, we showed the slide how 86% of the expenditures are essentially salaries and benefits. So how did you make up that fund balance? Well, obviously the biggest piece of the pie is people costs, so certainly it reflects, I think, the shared sacrifice made by several of the various employee groups and other decisions that the boards had to make. So I think that certainly warrants some recognition that you've established a level of financial flexibility, but I think that some acknowledgement should be made for the people who helped make that happen, certainly. Second thing I did want to mention is certainly congratulate the district on the recent passage of the construction bond. But as a reminder, under state law, there is a very limited number of costs that can be applied to construction bonds. It's essentially for construction, remodeling, refurnishing of buildings, and technology. State law does strictly prohibit the use of construction bond proceeds for general operations. So, again, I know you've had a lot of discussions around that, but just as a reminder, it's terrific we've passed the bond, but the bond is for very set specific parameter type items. And so, again, we just like to make sure that people don't get in their mindset when we pass this bond, well, the district is flush with cash. We have a bond, but that is for a very specific construction purpose. It can't be used for those general operation type items. So again, just as a reminder there. But with that, we're certainly happy to address any questions anybody might have for us this evening.
Dr. Weaver?
Yes, thank you. On this page here, you mentioned statewide averages. My question is, included in the statewide average, I notice it says excluding Detroit, but have you also included the hold harmless districts in this average as well?
Yes, it would include every district, and the reason we exclude Detroit is how this number is calculated. It's basically just total expenditure statewide divided by total fund balance statewide, and Detroit is so much larger than every district, it tends to skew the numbers. That's really the only reason we exclude Detroit. But it does include hold harmless districts, and it's a good point. So we talked about the funding level of Wayne Westland, which would be at the state minimum foundation allowance. So there's several districts that receive significantly more funding. A lot of your neighbors have more funding than Wayne Westland. So when Proposal A passed in 1994, the idea was to close the gap between higher funded and lower funded districts. And why that's come down perhaps somewhat, it is important to keep in mind that, in terms of the funding, and the foundation allowance provides roughly 76% of your general fund funding, and you're essentially at the lowest level the state will allow.
So would it be fair to say, as a follow-up, that hold harmless districts that take in $10,000, $11,000 per student, they are spending more, not saving it? They're spending more on their employees and things like that so that their percentages might look the same as ours.
Obviously, it's a district by district, but as an anecdotal evidence, I would say that is correct.
All right,
They
thank
already
you.
they're getting more per pupil, and they're correspondingly spending more per pupil versus saving more.
Was there anyone else that had a question? Okay, all right. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much for this presentation, Jeff and Jamie, and just to underscore that the true thank you does go to our bargaining units we did get our fund balance on the backs of our employees. And so knowing that and acknowledging that is something critical for all of us to do, that we did get in this situation, now having a fund balance that we can go into negotiations in a much better place. So thank you to our employees. Thank you to Plant Moran for really doing the deep dive into our audit and giving us the information that we need to be able to move forward with this work. So thank you very much. Appreciate that. So the next piece on our agenda, do I go on this one?
Yes.
Okay. So the next presentation, Mrs. Dybus, would you please come on up for, I'm sorry? They're not here? Okay. All right.
Well, if they happen to come in, just let me know and we can backtrack to that.
Okay.
You can go to C.
All right, so the next one is C. So I'm going to ask Mrs. Moore to come up. And the purpose for this presentation at this time is amidst some of our financial struggles, I've also spoken very frequently about our challenges in special education. Last week, Mrs. Moore did this, it's important to note, we had the special education presentation and the Plant Moran audit presentation. Both were done for our union presidents group, which meets monthly. just to get more of a picture of what's happening. And after seeing that presentation, and then there were questions from a few board members, we just figured it was right time, right place, where we already had it together to provide this information for the board. So without further ado, I will turn it over to our new Director of Special Education, Mrs. Nicole Moore, who is leading our special education department in great directions. Mrs. Moore.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Holt. Good evening, everyone. It's my goal this evening to share with you just a data portrait of where we are within our special education department, in addition to some of our strengths and small successes that we've already encountered in the 18-19 school year, and then to go into some of our areas of need and development within the department as well. So first, I'm providing you with a snapshot of our special education data in the 17-18 school year. So you can see at that time we had over 11,000 students within the district, and of those 11,728 students, over 2,000 students were students with IEPs. That is a little over 17.2%. So you can see in that next bullet point that it is the expectation by the federal government, the U.S. Department of Education, that 10% of our district's population should be students with IEPs. So you can see that we are over that that expectation of that percentage, and we'll get into some specific data in a minute. And the data that's represented, there are actually 13 eligibility categories for students with disabilities, and only 10 are really represented within that data, because and you can see the 3 bullet points of hearing impairment, visual impairment, and then TBI, which is traumatic brain injury. That is such a low population of students with disabilities that it doesn't really appear in our data. So it really captures the other 10 disability categories. So this is just a visual representation of what that looks like when looking at our student population in 17-18. With the 17.2 students, that percentage within our student population. So here is our trend data over the past 4 years. You can see that 4 years ago, we were a little under 15% of our student population with IEPs, and now we are at 17.2%. So when you look at this 4-year trend, you may think, okay, what is contributing to this increase with students with IEPs? And this is what we're looking at now through some of our evaluation processes. But really want to make sure that we're not over-identifying students, and that our evaluation process practices are done with fidelity, and that we really have a solid MTSS process, our multi-tiered system of support, for students before they're ever referred to the special education process. So we're working collaboratively with the Office of Academic Excellence to ensure that that is occurring right now to really address this increase of percentage within our special education population. So just locally speaking, when I first wanted to look at our largest districts within Western Wayne County. So we have Plymouth, Canton, and Livonia identified as well, in addition to the state of Michigan. So you can see the state of Michigan is currently at 12.8%. Again, our goal is always to be at least 10% or lower of our student population that has students with IEPs. And then even as a county, RESA is at 13.7%, is one of the largest counties in the state of Michigan. But if we look at our comparison data a little different for districts that have similar demographics and socioeconomic status, I pulled data from Detroit, Taylor, and Romulus. So even though Romulus does not have a similar size, similar demographics, Taylor, you can see, has an increasing special education population as well. And then Detroit, you can see that they've actually declined more recently, had a drop in the number of students with IEPs within their student population. Again, at the request of Dr. Holt, we wanted to look even outside of Wayne County. Districts that had similar socioeconomic status and demographics. So looking at Grand Rapids, Lansing, and Kalamazoo as well. And interestingly, that Lansing is very similar to our 4-year trend in data as well. So moving on a little bit, Wayne Westland is an Act 18 operating district, meaning that we have specialized programming within our district. They're listed here. We have 6 specialized programs: autism spectrum disorder, dual diagnosis, often referred to as DD, students who have cognitive impairments as well as some severe behaviors that we may see. Physically, our POHI program for our physically impaired students, SXI and SCI are more of our severe cognitively impaired students, as well as our early childhood program. So these programs are funded by RESA, by our county, and the district receives 100% reimbursement for them. These specialized areas require individuals that have certification to meet the specific needs of these students. These are very restrictive settings that support students who have severe, moderate to severe disabilities and require very small classroom sizes. So typically you're not going to see more than 10 students within one of our classrooms. So students throughout Western Wayne County really come to Wayne Westland because of our specialized program. So you may see a classroom with a POHI classroom that has students from 5 different districts within that classroom. But we take pride in our specialized program that we do offer and are really a great resource for students within the county and their families as well. So just to share a little bit more information about our Act 18 operating programs, you can see that for each program, I have the current enrollment. Remember I said they're very low numbers, low classroom sizes. But you can see how many students are coming to Wayne Westland. Let's just take the DD program. So currently there are 22 students enrolled in that program. 12 of those students are bused to Wayne Westland, but 10 of those students are actually our local district, our local residents. So you can see that for all 6 programs, I do not have early childhood listed. Those are pretty large numbers. We probably service throughout Western Wayne County close to 200 early childhood students receiving early childhood services, birth to 3. But with that said, you can see that in these restrictive settings, that a majority of the students are our students in Wayne Westland schools. So 51.9% of the students are ours, our local residents, and a little over 48% of the students are students coming throughout Western Wayne County. So I wanted to share some of our strengths and small successes that we've experienced so far within our time in Wayne Westland. As you know, the department has brand new administration. So myself as the director, and there are 4 special education supervisors. We came together at the beginning of the year as brand new to the district and really created our top 5 priorities for this year. One, we really want to develop a shared vision and identify what special education is within Wayne Westland. It's very important to us that we are visible in every building and that we are present for families and staff when there is a need, and definitely partnering with building leadership. We take pride in our effective communication, whether that's our monthly newsletter or just having our monthly departmental meetings with staff to hear their concerns and engaging in our advisory teams with staff. We are conducting program evaluations for every department and program within the special education department at this time, really to get a better understanding of what the needs are for staff as far as training. That leads me to number 5. The materials and the tools and the protocols that are being used, and really our day-to-day practices as educators, ensuring that we're providing high-quality program and services for our students with IEPs. And then, of course, what's very important to us is building staff capacity. So ensuring that our staff have the tools to be effective when they're providing service for our students. So I'm not going to go through every single one of these, but these are, as a goal, we want to acknowledge and celebrate our small successes every day. We do it whether we're in our small team meeting with other leaders in the department, to when we're in departmental meetings with staff as well. But we've had the opportunity as new administrators to really engage and have that dialogue with staff during our open house that we had back in August. We had almost nearly 80 people show up on a day that was not designated for them to be there, but out of their own time, they came to meet us as new administrators, and we held that at the Senior Citizen Center. Opening day, we had the opportunity to have all staff in the professional, in the special education department present, and we had fun. We had fun learning. We had fun learning about each other, and then it was a great opportunity for me to gauge what new learning the staff was excited about. We just started our special education parent advisory committee, which we have our first meeting scheduled for this month. And we're really taking into consideration the type of training and support that staff need and the modality that we're using in order to reach our staff. It may not always be sit and get. It may be very different and may be modules and online webinars that we're providing for our staff. What our focus is right now, you can see the last bullet point is really our special education job fair. This is coming up very soon. So you've probably seen this on social media already. So we do have some vacancies within the department. So I'm telling everyone that I'm sharing with all of you here today. Please share this with your social media and spread the word. So that is December 13th, which is a Thursday, I believe, from 9 to 1, and we will have on-site interviews. So I just want to briefly go into our areas of need and development within the department as well. So as you know, you've had the opportunity to meet Dr. Eleanor Harris, who is actually consulting with the district at this point and supporting the special education department. And through her observation and input, we've really narrowed it down to 3 focus areas over the next 5 years. And our goal is really, as I stated before, to ensure that we are delivering high-quality special education program and services for our students, and ensuring that our evaluation practices are conducted with fidelity. And that's how we avoid over-identification for our students. And really, overall, reducing the overall percentage of students with IEPs in our population. And that does not mean not providing intervention supports, but really looking at the type of interventions and supports necessary and how restrictive they need to be or may not need to be for that specialized instruction. So when we looked at that, it came down to 3 focus areas. Really, our continuum of program and services, budget practices, and communication. So over the next 3 slides, I've broken down each focus area, the goal of that area, and then also some action items that we currently have. So within our continuum of programming and services, we want to ensure that our district offers a full continuum of placement options to address every student's need. So when we're looking at that, and what we're doing right now is really reviewing our entrance and exit criteria to many of our categorical classrooms to ensure that that is not a destination for a student to remain in, but really that we're always looking at more inclusive practices for all of our students, that we're looking at and reviewing there's an ongoing review of caseloads as well. And I've said this several times, but we're monitoring and training staff in their evaluation practices, and really that touches back on really our percentage of students with special education, with IEPs within the district. But most importantly, that we're outlining a clear, articulated, district-wide process for our entry point to special education. Our second focus area is communication. And right now, with our advisory teams, we're really looking at a shared vision. What does that mean what does special education in Wayne Westland look like and mean to our families and staff? And we're working on a written policy and procedure handbook for staff. So this is to guide all their practices throughout the day. And then really looking at ongoing professional development opportunities, and like I stated, in different modalities as well. And then our last area was our budget practices. So our goal here was to ensure that we're being transparent, predictable, and considering individual needs of students and staff, even when it comes to purchasing protocols for evaluations. We're continuing to consider our caseload capacity and what that looks like. And of course, there's ongoing recruitment to fill the vacancies that I shared with you. And then again, that we're providing our new special education educators with a series of professional development, and really looking at each building individually and identifying what their needs are, whether it's programming and materials and even staffing. So just a reflection again over our three focus areas over the next 5 years. And are there any questions?
Dr. Weaver?
You mentioned IEP over-identification.
Correct.
How would you as director look at this problem and solve it and pull back those numbers without parents?
Right.
You know, how does that work?
Well, it is definitely a process that takes time. And it really starts with our evaluation processes and our practices. And that's why I mentioned so many times, and you saw it on multiple bullet points, about training that's necessary, ongoing training that's necessary for staff. So we can ensure that when we evaluate a student, we're doing it with fidelity, and that we know that when that evaluation is complete, it aligns with the criteria for a student to meet eligibility in a specific disability area. So that's really alignment with the special education rules for the state of Michigan. So really looking at our evaluation process, that would be one. Two, I believe developing our 504 process as well. I think it's very underutilized. And perhaps, I see you're agreeing, and perhaps a special education referral may have been an answer to meeting a student's need when the student's needs may not have been, could have been addressed with a 504. So that requires additional training and support for staff. I could go on, but but that was
That's fine.
That's just a few, but those are the some that come to the top of
Okay,
my head.
thank you.
Ms. Hines?
I'd like to say we definitely appreciate all that you are doing. I'm so excited about, it's like we're the Phoenix, we're rebuilding and restructuring, and we have a
Absolutely.
strategic plan to get to where we have to go. So thank you so much, all of you guys, for taking the time to really figure out how can we fix this situation. Because it was, we're getting a lot of complaints about it. You guys are stepping right on top of that to make sure everything is taken care of. And I'm so confident you guys are going to be successful with this. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate your feedback.
Mr. Buckaloo?
Yes, it goes without saying that if a student needs an individual education plan, he should have it.
Absolutely.
But the statistics that you're showing regarding the increase in the numbers, even though we're at 17%, and that seems like a low number, the trend seems to be rather dramatic.
Correct.
And I hear you hinting that maybe we could do a better job of identification, and that maybe we could take a step back and take another look at our center-based programs. And I wouldn't be so bold as to ask you at this point what you think we ought to do, but if you were to come back in June or July, might you be able to give us some indication of a direction that we need to follow?
Absolutely. Yes.
Thank you.
At that time. It has been only 2 months for me, so is it 2? So this is a lot of data collection that we've experienced through observation and, of course, dialogue with discussions with staff. But we have a good snapshot of where we are currently and where we need to be. So I'm confident that I could definitely do that in May or June for you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Madell?
So in other words, you hit the floor running once you got here.
I've heard that expression before, so yeah. It was,
But it's one of those, sometimes it needs a pair of outside eyes to take
Correct.
a look, because otherwise the numbers start blurring together after a while, and the data starts looking the same, and you lose your perspective.
Absolutely.
You need the fresh set of eyes. Have we picked up any other catchment programs in the last couple of years? Or are we still dealing with the ones that we've had right along?
well, the only one that was added this year was the ASD program. That is one classroom with 7 students, a teacher, and 2 paraprofessionals.
What's ASD?
I'm sorry, autism spectrum disorder. So that was added this year. So we have gone from 5 to 6 center-based programs.
Because I know there are districts in the last couple of years that have dropped their center-based programs because of financial strain on their budgets, and I know the rest of us have had to pick them up
Right.
in order to provide quality education to these kids. So
Right.
that's why I was wondering if we picked up any lately.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Ms. Moore.
Thank you.
Dr. Holt, is that presentation something that can be done without them here, or do you want to move it to next meeting, or how do you guys want to handle that? Next meeting? Okay. All right. Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Moving on to item number 173.18, citizen comments, agenda items only. Okay, seeing none. Moving on to item number 174.18. I take a motion to the consent agenda.
Moved.
Moved by Mrs. Madell,
Support.
support by Dr. Weaver. I already had 2. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Madell?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Buckaloo?
Yes.
Dr. Weaver?
Yes.
Ms. Hines, yes. Ms. Walker?
Yes.
Let the record show
6-0.
6-0.
Motion passes, thank you. Item number 175.18, Board of Education Committee Reports. Finance Committee, Mr. Buckaloo.
Yes, thank you. The following is a summary of the Finance Committee meeting of November 7th, 2018. The Finance Committee met on Wednesday, November 7th, 2018, from 10:21 a.m. until 12:27 p.m. Board trustees present were myself, Mrs. Madell, Dr. Weaver, and representing administration, Dr. Shelley Holt, Superintendent, Stacy Witt, Assistant Superintendent, Carrie Matchick, Administrative Assistant, and representing Plant Moran, Jamie Eisenmacher, and Jeff Higgins. Finance Committee met, discussed the vendor response to the request for proposal to obtain owner's representative services that was sent out on October 16th, 2018. The Finance Committee concurred with administration that we would utilize the Stoner Advisory Group for their expertise in this role as needed. And I would just add to that, this comment, that the nature of that service does not require board approval. The 2018 bond was approved, and these funds will not and cannot be used to pay employee salaries. That was a part of the Plant Moran presentation, and as I understand it, the penalty for misusing those funds is rather drastic. So we will not be doing that. We will be working with Jesse Nelson from UMBA in selecting an underwriter for purchasing bonds. Also, we are moving on to the second round of interviews for a construction manager. Plant Moran reviewed the 2017-18 audit, and that was sent to the state of Michigan and will be available on the transparency page. The Finance Committee recommends Communication by Design to the board for approval to be our consultant for technology. This company will work with the construction manager for upcoming renovations if that meets with board approval.
Thank you, thank you, Mr. Buckaloo. Moving on to item number 176.18, review and approval, business, service, and finance items. Ms. Witt.
Good evening. A request for proposal to provide informational technology design and management services was sent to 5 vendors on October 16th, 2018. 2 vendors responded to the RFP. The public bid opening was held on November 1st at 10 a.m. I am requesting board approval to award the contract to Communication by Design. The cost to the award of this contract will not exceed $336,000. If approved, the cost of this contract will be charged to the bond.
Okay. At this time, I'll take a motion.
Move approval.
Moved by Dr. Weaver. Any support?
Support.
Support by Ms. Hines. Any discussion? Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Vidal?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Buckaloo?
Yes.
Dr. Weaver?
Yes.
Ms. Hines, yes. Ms. Walker?
Yes.
Let the record show 6-0.
Thank you. Motion carries. Moving on to item number 177.18, review and approval of board policies. Last month, we had reviewed some policies, and there was one that was left off just by overlook or however. So the following are revisions that were made by the district's board policies as recommended by Lusk and Albertsons, our attorneys. These revisions were reviewed by the policy committee on September 6th. So at this time, I'll take a motion. Oh, I'm sorry, was that, did you need to add something to that?
You know, you did a fine job.
Oh, okay. At this time, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Dr. Weaver, supported by Ms. Hines. Any discussion? Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Hines, yes. Ms. Vidal?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Buckaloo?
Yes.
Dr. Weaver?
Yes.
Ms. Walker?
Yes.
Let the record show 6-0.
Thank you. Motion carries. Item number 178.18, Head Start Monthly Report. Mrs. Madell.
In front of you, you have 2 months' worth of financial reports, as I promised would be coming to you. We still have October yet to come, but we wanted to make sure that you were brought up to speed on the monthly expenses. The last time we met, which was just after our board meeting, we still had approximately 50 openings at Head Start, and they were in the process of interviewing candidates for that program. So I'm hoping that it's come down. This is the largest amount of openings that we've had at this time of the year, and I think that was because of some confusion at the beginning of the school year. But as we've worked out and worked with the management company, we're trying to rectify that so that our students are receiving the services that they need at this time, so.
Mrs. Madell, does that motion need to be in 2 separate ones, or can we do it in the same for the 2 reports?
Actually, I think we can do both months.
On the same one?
Yeah.
Okay, so at this time, I'll need a motion to accept Ms. Madell's Head Start report.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Cox. Any support? Support by Ms. Hines. Any discussion? Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Dr. Weaver?
Yes.
Ms. Hines, yes. Ms. Vidal?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Buckaloo?
Yes.
Ms. Walker?
Yes.
Let the record show 6-0.
Thank you. Motion carries. Item number 179.18, Superintendent Report. Dr. Holt.
Thank you, Madam President. I would be remiss with this being the celebration of Veterans Day, not to acknowledge and celebrate our veterans. I know we have a few in the room. Would we mind, if you are a veteran of the United States or any military, would you please stand for us?
Dwayne, if
come
you
on,
don't stand
Dwayne.
up.
Dwayne, I'm talking to you. And Mr. Neal. So I just want to acknowledge the veterans in the room, but in addition to the veterans, also acknowledging their families. Our veterans cannot do their work without knowing that and having the peace of mind of those of us who are at home taking care of whatever it is that we need to take care of. And having spent 2 of my brother's 9 tours keeping his children, it's no small feat to take care of the families of our veterans as they are serving our country. So thank you as well to the families of our servicemen and women, because you do make what we do very possible. That being said, and speaking a little bit about families, Mrs. Walker often talks about us here in Wayne Westland being a family. And in a family, we do have to acknowledge when we are hurt. We do have to acknowledge when our families have made sacrifices. We do have to acknowledge when our families have helped us get to where we are. And so at this time, I would like to take another opportunity to acknowledge the sacrifice and honor our employees for what they have done to build up our fund balance. We know that this has not been an easy road. We know that it has been a tried and true journey that we have been on with our employees. And I stand here, or sit here actually, right now to say that we are going to work together as we move into this next season together to make things right for us as a family. So thank you to our employees for your sacrifice, because we know it has been huge. Trust and believe, all of us who are new to the district, we have heard you loud and clear. Please know that your stories are not remiss. Your stories have not fallen on deaf ears. The story of family gets really challenging during the holiday season. The holidays, meaning the month of November and December, for some of us, they bring joy and excitement, and we can all hear the Christmas bells and the ringing, and the Thanksgiving turkey's already smoldering. But smoldering. That's what I did to the turkey.
You burnt up your turkey.
I burnt up the turkey on several occasions, but don't mind the fact that I burned turkeys. Just saying. That's why you cook them in a bag. But where I'm going with this is that many of our families have experienced loss during the holidays. For some of our families, it's the first holiday without a loved one. For some of our families, holidays mean that our kids aren't going to get the 2 to 3 meals a day that maybe they do receive at our school sites. Mm-hmm. For some families, this can be a very trying situation. And for those of us in education, we absorb a lot of that's going on in our community. That being said, please know it and be patient with one another as we go into the months of November and December. It is never easy. Discipline shoots through the roof. Folks, the communities tend to have suicide rates increase. Communities tend to be very stretched during this season. Please know that. If you are a parent in our community and you need support, please reach out to one of our family resource specialists. We have increased this year from 1 family resource specialist person to now 5. 3 at the school sites and 2 here at central office to provide support for our families. We here in Wayne Westland believe in taking care of the Wayne Westland family. So if you are hurt or you know someone is hurting during this season, and I mean that financially, emotionally, whatever it may be, we want to make sure that our kids are getting the very best. And we know that that's only possible when the entire family unit is taken care of. Now, we can't do everything, but we can at least be a listening ear. We can at least be empathetic. We can minimally connect you with services. So we ask that if you see someone that is struggling, reach out to us. If you are that person that is struggling, please reach out to us. Another thing that increases during this season is bullying. Bullying behavior not just among children, but also amongst adults. Here in our organization, we are struggling right now with some bullying that's happening in our schools. Parents, please be reminded that this type of behavior, I hate to say it, but it's very true. As a mother of 7, and some of my kids have been bullied, and some of my kids have been the bully. And I've had to deal with that at home. And I recognize on both sides of it, it's not easy. Please know that these issues oftentimes begin in the community or on social media. It is important that we as a community are vigilant in looking at the social media of our children. If you have provided your child with access to social media, please take the responsibility of looking at it on a regular basis to see what is happening. My children do not have social media. I take that back. That's not true. My son just got a Twitter or one of those things for football, but that was just in the last month because the coaches are on there. But I've been very adamant about that as a parent because I do see what happens. But if you as a family have chosen to allow the children to access the social media as a family, we can help you become responsible for that. But we are encouraging you, look at what's happening, pay attention to those cues that are happening with your kids, because this is the time of year when suicide rates go up. This is the time of year when violence increases. This is the time of year when abuse of substances increases, and we have to be vigilant and pay attention to those things. I could go on forever about that, but I don't want to. Next thing is really, I want to thank Mrs. Moore, I want to thank Jeff, and I want to thank Jamie for their presentations today. Thank you so much. Brilliant, brilliant work, and we create a great team together. Last but not least, I have to address the bond. We passed a $158 million bond. That is amazing. And I would be remiss not to acknowledge our two union presidents who are here, Toph Pauling and Don Harris. Thank you so much for your work. They aren't here, but I do have to acknowledge our WABA group, our Wayne Westland Building Administrators, and our Wayne Westland Central Office Administrators, where I may not have the presidents, I do have representatives, and each of those organizations donated $500 each to the bond, and I want to thank them for their financial contributions to this work. We thank I have to say this, Ms. Hines. Wow. Ms. Hines was absolutely one of our greatest proponents for the bond, literally working every connection that you possibly could. And we, as a community, we thank you for that. We know that was a huge sacrifice for you and your family, and you did an amazing job and representation of our board. So thank you so very much. And also, I think he's here. Yes, Bill Medell, Carol's husband, who served as treasurer for our bond. Thank you for all of that work and making sure that everything is legal when it comes to the bond. So I cannot express enough thanks to our community for your vote of confidence in us as an organization and as a community. We know that what you did is supporting not only our staff, not only our students, not only the Wayne Westland family, but you showed us that we are a community. And we, as a community school district, we are determined to show you and make you proud of the Wayne Westland schools. We know we can do this, and we thank you for believing in us. We thank you, we thank you, we thank you. Finally, I want to give a shout out to the Wayne Dispatch for 10 years as a newspaper. And congratulations to all the schools who had many events over the last few months, including like Spooktacular, and we finished up fall sports. And I mean, there's just so much going on in the midst of this. And the team here, I'm speaking directly to my executive cabinet, they have been out. I don't know if there was a night that we got home before like 7 or 8 o'clock for about a good 3 weeks there, pushing the bond, but also making sure that we were there for our schools. So thank you to the Wayne Westland community. Have a very happy Thanksgiving, and we appreciate you.
Thank you, Dr. Holt. Moving on to item number 180.18, citizen comments, non-agenda items. Okay. So, if you can go to the podium there, just state your name, your address, and we'll start whenever you're ready. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Okay, I put a blue sheet out there.
Okay, and
my name is Rashida Johnson.
you already signed, you left it out there?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah,
we'll
it
make
said to leave
sure
it out
that
there.
it gets to the secretary.
Okay, my name is Rashida Johnson. I live in Westland. You need my actual physical address?
It's okay, go ahead.
Okay, and so it was a perfect segue from Superintendent Holt about all the programs that's happening. I wanted to know, is there a resource for parents like me who work? I serve the juvenile justice community in Detroit, but my children do attend school out here. And I find it difficult for them to participate in after-school programming because there is no bus service. The two students I'm talking about, they catch the bus. And not having that makes it where it's not equitable for all students because students that cannot walk home cannot participate in after-school programming. I looked on the website to see if there were some resources. Under transportation, it's mainly dealing with senior citizens getting to and fro where they need to, but not for, middle school kids who can't walk home. You can't take Uber for kids that's under 18, plus I wouldn't do that anyway. I went to care.com to see if I could hire a nanny to take them home, but because I just need a drop-off service, nobody will take the job because it's not enough money. And so I think it kind of isolates a group of kids who ordinarily would love to participate and, the academics would be enriched by the opportunities if we had access to, get them there. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi. My name is Amber Spooler. I have 3 kids in 3 different schools in the school district, and I'm finding it very difficult to find consistency when it comes to a policy that was handed to me in regards to my special needs child. Oh, sorry, I'm trying not to get emotional. My son, who has special needs, deserves a service that is not provided by the school. Therefore, an outside professional support staff comes into the school for 1 hour a week to provide the teacher and the student the ability to work out any anxiety or any sort of transition from preschool to kindergarten. I was recently told that this policy mandates that this person is no longer allowed to be in the school. I find that very disruptive in the sense that my son, it's a service that he needs, that the school does not have to pay for, but is no longer able to be provided. So as a parent, I'm very concerned that it's not being consistent, because at other schools, it's allowed without written notice, without full policy being thrown at the parent. So I just want to heed some warning that if we're going to be throwing policies around, that we need to be consistent. Because when lawsuits start coming, it's not going to be feasible if we're not consistent. So I just want to make that evidently clear on a special needs kid that really wants and needs his therapy. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, so, ma'am, if you didn't fill out a form or gave your information, please make sure that the secretary does, and that someone will get back in touch with both of you, okay? All right. Moving forward, moving on to item number 181.18, review and recommendations, Board of Education. Dr. Weaver, you look like you're anxiously ready to start.
Thank you, Madam President. I really, really appreciate these outdoor meetings in November and December. And I'm hoping that someone turns the heat on in December. I'd appreciate it. Veterans Day, congratulations to all the veterans in our district, our teachers, our administrators, and also in our community. Again, congratulations to our district on the bond. Also, I'd like to say congratulations to Mark Neal, former fire chief of Westland, who was elected to our board for 6 years. And the pledge kids were great. And I'd just like to say a quick word, and I maybe didn't see it or whatever, but the Observer, as far as I remember, is our paper of record. I was glad to see that they finally got on board that we passed our bond, but I didn't see any articles about the district during our bond preparation and work, and I'm very concerned about that. I don't know how to address it, but I'd like to see that addressed in some way. And I could be wrong, I could have missed an article, but that's what I'm seeing right now. So, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Weaver. Mr. Buckaloo.
Yes, I try to be organized, but that's not going to happen today. I want to start by thanking all of our employees first because of the sacrifices that they've made that have made our fund equity possible. And there's no question on the part of anyone on this board that without your sacrifices over the last few years, that we wouldn't have survived as a school district. And now to have a healthy fund equity, I'm really thankful for that. I'd also like to thank our staff and our parents for getting the word out on the bond, for explaining to everybody just what use we can make of that money. If we could double that, if we could have $300 million, we could spend that too. There's no question about it. But we're so thankful to have what we have, and we will use it judiciously. We will, to steal the thunder of my good friend Mr. Cox, we will adopt a policy of promises made and promises kept. It will be spent as it is advertised and as it was intended. Thanks to Charlotte and to Haley and for Evan for getting us off to a good start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Again, we always are thankful that we have our students come in and get us going the way we ought to be going. I attended the MASB conference in Grand Rapids with several of my board members. Always you pick up something useful when you go to a conference like that. One of the highlights, I think, was watching Mrs. Walker receive recognition as a director for our region, for the state organization. You do us proud. Thank you very much for that. And then the vote. Across the country, we cast over 100 million votes. At no time had a midterm election received that kind of attention from the voters. Here in Michigan, the vote was up as well. We haven't had that many people turn out to vote in a midterm in over a half century. On our bond issue here locally, we had over 30,000 people cast a vote, some for and some against, and fortunately the majority for. To those people who voted at whatever level, I say thank you, and you in fact are the beneficiaries of what you've done by voting. And with that, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bucklew. Mr. Cox?
Well, first things first, I'd like to thank our veterans. Happy Veterans Day. And I see a Marine veteran, Mr. Walker, and Mr. Neal, a veteran of the U.S. Army. I'm glad you weren't as reluctant to join the service as you were to get up and be recognized. a few moments ago. And Mark, congratulations on your victory to the Board of Education. I know that members of the board who don't know you will appreciate how many years' experience you have working collaboratively with others and to get things done, and how much you've already done for the community. And I'm very glad to see you coming on the board, and very happy to see my colleague, Mr. Weaver, reelected as well. Thanks to Mr. Medell for keeping the books. Also, thank you to Sharon Scott, who's a member of the board at the Wayne County Community College District. Even though they also had a bond issue, she was a co-chair of our bond issue and told everybody that would listen, please to support the bond, as did former board member and former mayor Trav Griffin, who joined John Racy, the mayor-elect for the city of Wayne, all of whom stood with our school district and in support of this bond issue. And even though I've had a lot of personal things going on, joyous things in our family lately, Ms. Hines, you are to be thanked for all your hard work for this bond. Certainly, I know everybody put forth a tremendous effort, the superintendent and your staff. Remember the first thing I told you, as soon as you get off that plane, the first thing you have to do is this bond. So I'm so happy that it came out this way. And as somebody that was here the last time we passed a bond issue, I want to take you back just a little bit in history and tell you that what we had told the community at that time is our buildings had fallen into disrepair. Money that we should have been using to take care of the buildings needed to be used to offset the reduction in state foundation monies that we were receiving. We simply didn't have a choice. The bridge just didn't get painted. And when it came time to repair those things, we put together a bond issue and we said two things. First of all, this bond money would be used only for this purpose. And secondly, we would never let our property fall into disrepair again. And all of the boards of educations from then till now kept that promise. And on election day, when I went into Marshall School, I looked through the open door. It was before 7 o'clock, so they weren't letting us in yet. But I could see the gymnasium floor, and it looked flooded. It was so perfect and shiny and flawless, and that's how everything looks. So this bond issue was not created to fix and repair broken buildings, even though our buildings are older and they need some updates. This bond issue is going to bring new things to our district that we didn't have before. It's not just fixing what we had. We're going to have some new things as a consequence of this. So this is definitely a step forward. Tonight, the Board of Education made a decision to forego the owner's representative way of managing a construction project. What a manager's what an owner's representative does is takes the responsibility of implementing all of the phases of the construction project, being mindful that the entity doing the construction is engaged in other work, in this case, education. And as the chairman of the special ed department told us this evening, there's much work to be done. She obviously wouldn't have time to stop and build the garage and the new room on the elementary school. She's going to be engaged in doing the business of education. And of course, so are we, while this is all ongoing. And I know that we have a fail-safe in terms of, we've got the Stoner Company that will come in. I've talked about this till I'm blue in the face. I think Owner's Rep has its merit as an industry, and I hope that we do realize the savings as a consequence of our decision, and not found out that our decision was foolhardy in the end with all that is coming up, not to mention negotiations on contracts, which I've heard a lot of conversation about contracts, and the fact that the employees of the school district have helped us maintain a positive fund balance, and they certainly have. We were in a position that we had no choice but to ask them to support that. And I want to be very careful that we don't pretend to tell employees that we're going to make them whole on everything that they've given up from the first time that we negotiated this till now. It's not possible. That money doesn't exist, first of all, and that's not possible. What we need to do, in my estimation as one board member, is we need to have parity with other districts in Wayne County, so that when somebody who is a quality person looking to make a life for themselves in education, this is a great place to come and stay. And that's what I'm gonna be looking for, so. Thank you to everybody for your efforts. That's all I have, Sean.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Ms. Hines?
Hi, I'd like to thank all the veterans out there for your awesome service for our community. I'd like to thank the kids that did the Pledge of Allegiance. Congratulations, Mr. McNeil. I look forward to working with you. I also like to say thank you, community, for passing this bond. I mean, this has been an emotional time because I went to school in Wayne Westland. My son is in Wayne Westland. This was a life decision. So thank you so much. I'd like to thank Mike McDormand and Pat with the One campaign. They sent people out door to door to people's houses to make sure the literature got out. I'd like to thank Mr. Medill for being a treasurer, because that's hard work with that type of ballot proposal with all the campaign finance shenanigans. It's crazy. And Amanda and Maria, Jenny, Shelley, everybody who all helped, the financial people who gave us money, because it was like $7,400 just to send out some letters in the mail, and we had 2 weeks to raise that money. So thank you for everybody who contributed. So I mean, I am so fired up about this district, because I'm not gonna lie, I got a little disappointed, all the negative media. I like to thank the teachers for, you know, combating and saying, hey, that's not true, you know, really standing up for our district. So you want to go for another 6 years after this. I really want to make sure all these things that we set in place is going to come to fruition. I want this to be the best district. I went to the school 20 years ago when they passed the last bond. I want it to be the same for the children in the communities growing up. I want to bring more kids to this district, and I want to be like the top Wayne Westland. I'm just excited. So thank you so much for helping us, and y'all have a great Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Ms. Hines. Mrs. Medill?
I'm not too sure how she feels about that. Anyway, I apologize to John Glenn High School because I did not get a chance to go see their fall play this year because we were at the MASB conference in Grand Rapids, but I did get a chance this weekend to go to Wayne Memorial's fall play, which was Noises Off, and the kids did a great job. It's truly unfortunate when you have a movie that's already been made of a play and then the kids present that, you tend to compare the two. And there's no way that our kids can compete with, you know, really great actors that have been in the business for a while. But you know what? They knocked it out of the park. They really did. They did a fabulous job. Got a chance to go with Mr. Buckaloo and Mrs. Holt and few other faces to the ceremony today at John Glenn High School for Veterans Day. And unfortunate with the weather the way it was, we had to be inside because it was a little cold out there. But again, to honor people who have chosen to serve our country. And some gave the ultimate, and families gave the ultimate also. And it's one of those things that we need to remind them that welcome back. And I don't know about anybody else, but I personally will never forget what they chose to do for our country. Family Resource Center had a fabulous fundraiser, I understand, but going forward, anytime the Family Resource Center has a fundraiser, please be part of it, because the money that they do collect go back into services for our kids, whether it's in school supplies or clothing or sending parents to the right agencies to get the help that they need for their family and their students. This is where they can go, and it's free of charge. So fundraising monies go basically directly back to our kids in the form of help and support. Thank you, Mrs. Moore. That's probably the most comprehensive special ed presentation I've seen in a long time, and it was well needed and a little overdue.